"You're fired." President Trump is dusting off his tagline from The Apprentice and making use of it at the White House. POTUS announced to the nation via a tweet the morning of September 10th that he had fired his third national security advisor, John Bolton. The tweet wasn't even minutes old before reporters began spinning their coverage of the unceremonious dismissal. I evaluated the news carefully from several different sources to find out what happened between Bolton and Trump. Today I'll give you a summary of the story and perhaps more importantly, discuss how the story was reported. In this era of polarized political opinion and talk of fake news, I hope to leave you with a few tools to fact-check information through my research and evaluation. Now for the story. Although the end came rather suddenly, the termination of the National Security Advisor was not a surprise on Capitol Hill. There were several claims that the president's behavior toward Bolton in past months warned of a possible breakup. Reportedly, Bolton was left out of meetings and his advice on matters of national security ignored, even as the National Security Advisor. According to a September 10th NPR article by Ewing, Trump's obvious reluctance to pick new fights was at odds with Bolton's hawkish reputation. The final blow to Bolton's career in the White House stemmed from a feud over Trump's plans to actually meet with Taliban leaders at Camp David. Trump canceled the meeting over a Taliban attack that killed an American soldier and then reported it himself in a tweet. Just 3 days later, Bolton's termination was announced the same way on Twitter. Excuse me. Have a cold. As a result, there were several immediate news media releases on the topic, and I set about evaluating 5 of them. In my analysis of 3 articles from NPR, CNN, and Politico, and 2 televised videos from Fox News and MSNBC, I found both similarities and differences in the focus of the information and exactly how it was delivered. The similarities in all 5 pieces included 2 main points. One involved previous discord between Trump and Bolton on foreign policy, which grew more divisive over time. CNN's Collinson wrote in his September 11th article, Bolton had disagreed with Trump on several occasions, sealing his own doom. The second point was that the bitter end came with failed plans for meeting with the Taliban at Camp David. White House correspondent for Fox News, John Roberts, referred to it as the straw that broke the camel's back, not once, but twice in his broadcast. Although the basic facts of Bolton's exit from the White House were largely agreed upon by all sources, there was some haggling over one detail. Was the former NSA fired or did he quit? In an MSNBC video, Nicole Wallace stated that Trump only claimed to have fired Bolton, while the former NSA had offered to resign. Other news coverage barely mentioned this detail, if at all. The most noticeable differences in the coverage of Bolton's termination centered around the tone of each report. While NPR, Politico, and Fox showed little to no obvious biases, the CNN article and the MSNBC video emanated with open criticism for the president. For example, Collinson's opener to his CNN article stated, Bolton had to go because he wanted to cancel President Donald Trump's worldwide reality TV show. In another example, MSNBC's Nicole Wallace said Bolton was a check on the president's most reckless and childlike impulses. While these comments leave little doubt to the opinions of the source, obvious bias opens a journalistic piece up to questions of credibility. Which brings us to our final topic, fact-checking. There are several fact-checking sites available on the internet for political information. Of the 3 I used, FactCheck, PolitiFact, and Snopes, the latter offered the most relevant evidence of the facts. In an AP article by Miller and Reichman, several points from the other sources were corroborated, including a history of trouble between Trump and Bolton. The journalist did so with direct quotes from sources like Senator Lindsey Graham. Fact-checking websites like Snopes can be very helpful in confirming facts, but there are also other telltale signs that you can use to assess credibility. For example, evaluate any news story from several different reports for consistency. Those points that are agreed upon by a variety of sources are likely the facts of the story. In our story, while it's probably true Bolton had many fights with Trump, it's less likely that he willingly resigned. Another way to assess credibility is to watch for bias. Most news coverage today in the U.S. is fed to us from a political slant, but unfair prejudice can be a sign of misleading and even untruthful information. Bias in a newscast is like a caution light warning us to be careful. Now let's quickly recap what we've learned about Bolton, the evaluation of the coverage, and fact-checking for credibility. To summarize, Trump announced via tweet Bolton's resignation. Leading up to this, the National Security Advisor had an increasingly more difficult relationship with his boss. And the final blow came with his open disagreement over the proposed peace talks with the Taliban. In evaluating this story from varying perspectives for consistency and checking the credibility of main points of the coverage with fact-checking websites, we're better equipped to assess information we receive every day in this polarizing political environment. After all, none of us want to fall prey to fake news.